Hello, I'm John, the Warhammer Modeler, and in this video I want to talk about Necromunda. Not anything about the game setting or the models or anything like that. I want to talk about the books that are available for it and what you actually need to be able to start playing or get a little bit more in depth with the game itself. Now, I've loved Necromunda for many years. In the early 90s, it was a series of White Dwarf article releases called Confrontation. Then in the mid to late 90s, we had the first edition of Necromunda, which in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a re-release in the Specialist Games, which then became a living rulebook online. And then it went quiet for a few years until we had the re-release a couple of years ago, which came out with the first rulebook. Now, the first books that came out are still quite valid if you get hold of them, but they aren't available to purchase anymore. So this first rulebook came with the first box game release. So along with the rulebook, we had the Gang War supplements, the first coming out at the same time as the rulebook, which introduced more gang rules, more ways to play and that kind of thing. We then had 3 more Gang War supplements. At this point, the final kind of gang supplement came in White Dwarf, which was one for House Delac, and also a Gang Raids, which was smaller games of Necromunda. Now, all of these books you can no longer get. You can probably pick them up on eBay or other second-hand sites, but these ones, although the rules are still quite valid and work in my eyes, aren't anything that you need to worry about. We got the Dark Uprising release, which is still available, which introduced another faction, a bit of chaos into Necromunda. Also allowed you to do different kinds of campaigns. At the same time as this was released, we got a new rulebook as well as Gangs of the Underhive. So Gangs of the Underhive has all of the rules for all of the gangs and special characters, hired guns, things like that. And the rulebook was the comprehensive rulebook with all the different kind of rules, scenarios, and so on. So at the moment, Dark Uprising is still available, and this rulebook is perfectly valid if you just want this one. It's a great box set, has lots of scenery in it, 2 different gangs. We have the hardback rulebook, which is a really comprehensive rulebook that talks through all of the gameplay. Gangs of the Underhive, which allow you to create gangs with the 6 main gang houses. These are a bit more comprehensive gangs than the original Gang War releases. And recently with the Hive War rulebook, just here, this is a great introduction to the game. If you don't want to get too heavily into the game, you don't need any of these. You just need to get the new Hive War box set. You get 2 gangs. You get all of the rules for those gangs in there. So, as an introduction to the game, this is a perfect place to start. Hive War. If you want a slightly more comprehensive rulebook, more miniatures, more scenery, Dark Uprising. Great choice. As you get more into the game, the rulebook and Gangs of the Underhive, perfect additions to allow you to create gangs and so on. Now, these aren't the only books that are available for Necromunda. We also have a few of these. So, more hardback books. These add more character to the game, more rules, more gangs, and so on. So I just want to quickly go through the 3 of these to give you an idea of what's in them in case you haven't got them and you're thinking about getting them. The Book of Peril introduces a few different characters. It also introduces Venerator gangs. Now, the Venerator gangs are bounty hunter gangs. But what this also allows you to do is create a very customizable gang. So if you're not too into the 6 gang houses that are in Gangs of the Underhive, you can make up, using these rules, pretty much your own gang from scratch, which is Good fun if you've already had a few games and you want to get a bit more in depth. Make your own house maybe. There are lots of other rules in this one, treacherous conditions and things like that. The Book of Judgment, this allows you to have rules for outlaws and criminal activity within the game. Also has the rules for the enforcers. So if you want a gang of enforcers to keep the law and order in your corner of the Underhive, this is the perfect book for you. We then have the Book of Ruin. This is a book that I particularly like. It introduces different kinds of cults, whether it's the Chaos cults or even the Gene Stealer cults. If you're looking for that kind of thing, this is the book for you. There's 3 different gangs in here, but also rules to convert your other gangs, so the gangs from gangs of the Underhive, into Chaos worshipping gangs. So those are the book ofs. Next week sees the release of another book for individual houses. If you want to get really in depth into the houses, you can get a hardback book on each of them. So the House of Chains is all about House Goliath. In here, there's lots of background, different rules. There's also rules for Ogryns and a few other things within this book. All of these ones, you don't need them to actually play the game, but they do add a lot of depth if you want to get a little bit more into it. So we've got the House of Chains. We also have the House of Blades, which is House Escher. So it gives more comprehensive rules for them, a few more choices and so on. House of Iron, which is for House Orlok. Again, more comprehensive rules, different gang lists and so on. Then House of Artifice. This is for the Van Saar gangs. Lots of background. Again, the same as the other books. Slightly more comprehensive gang rules and so on. I think next week comes out the House of Faith, which is for House Cawdor, and also has the rules for Redemptionists in. And then we'll just be waiting for the book on House Delac. Now, this does seem like quite a lot of books to play the game. But as I said, you don't need all of these books to play the game. The only one you need is the Hive War rulebook that came out with the recent boxed release. So if you're looking to get into the game, this is the place to start. Hive War. You get 2 gangs, you get the basic rules, and then if you get into the game and want to go any further, I'd highly recommend the hardback rulebook and Gangs of the Underhive. All the other books do contain a lot of things on the lore of the different houses and Necromunda. Lots of different rules about guilds and other characters and things like that. So it really does build up a really interesting game. But as I said, if you want to start playing, you just need Hive War. If you want to get a bit more in depth, you just need these 2 books. I hope you found this video interesting. I just wanted to make this quick one on all these different books, just to let people know what's in them. As there was the recent release of the new Hive War, and next week we've got another gang book coming out, I thought it'd be quite interesting just to see what books have come out, what you actually need to play and so on. Anyway, that's enough for this video. If you'd like me to make a video on any specific subjects, if you want me to talk about previous iterations of Necromunda or have a look at Confrontation, please leave a comment below. For now, thanks for watching. I'm John, the Warhammer Modeler. Stay safe.